MPhil Research Degrees Open event. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're very glad to have you with us, and we hope that you really enjoy your time with us in this webinar also. My name is Jane Nobbs. I'm Head of Postgrad Research at UAL. I lead the team that looks after all the processes and admin for postgrad research at UAL, right from an event like today through to you getting your award and becoming a member of our alumni. Next slide, please. This is just a little bit of housekeeping for the event. Microphones and cameras are muted. If you would like to have a live transcript of the event, then you can accept live transcript. Please ask questions through the Q&A function. We'll be trying to answer as many questions as we can as they appear in the Q&A. Any that we think are of interest to everybody, we'll probably save until the end. And any really college-specific ones, we'll be asking members of staff from our colleges who are here today to answer those. Any queries following on from this event, please email to that email address there, researchdegrees@arts.ac.uk. Also, just to mention that this session is being recorded. Next slide, please. Just to outline the programme for today, we will be looking at why study for a research degree, why join us at UAL, and part of this will be to introduce you to our research environments, how we will support you as a postgraduate researcher at UAL, how to complete and submit your application. We'll be looking at eligibility and funding. And as I've already mentioned, there will be questions that you can put in the chat as we go through, and you'll get an opportunity to add more questions at the end. We won't be having breakout discussions in this event. Thank you. Next slide, please. And now I need to introduce you to the Dean of our doctoral school, Professor Vida Midgelow.
Thank you, Jane, and welcome everybody. It's great to have you here and to see your interest in studying for a research degree and what we have to offer at UAL. It's great to have you all here. One of the things we'd like to do to get us going is just get a little bit of information and also for you to share with each other. It's always a bit strange on a webinar. You can't see the other people in the room in quite the same way. To know who's in the room, because who is in the room also gives an idea of who is it might be your peers, who might be the peers that you're joining at UAL. So it's an invitation to just perhaps put a little bit about yourself. Maybe it's where you're based, maybe it's a name, maybe it's something about what university you're currently at or you had studied at. So something that gives an indication of who's in the room with us today. So if I might start that in the chat function and I'm linking it to everybody, I might put I'm Vida and I'm UAL London. And maybe as we go through, you might just get us an idea of who's with us today. Kind of an invitation to put that into the webinar chat. Great. Oh, chat is disabled, I'm seeing on there. So can we put it in the Q&A? Let's pop it in the Q&A. Oh, and now it's been enabled. Fab. Thank you, everybody. The joys of technology. So put that either in the Q&A or the chat. Fantastic. It's great to see these coming in. Fantastic. So one of the things I'm asking you to do that for is also to get a sense in terms of the scope of the type of people that might be doing a PhD, and it's hugely varied from very different career stages and points of life. So we have people doing research degrees that are right at the beginning of their career. Perhaps they've just completing a MA and they're thinking of going straight into a research degree, as well as people of many, many years of experience under their belts and have perhaps had former careers in either business or as artists or in the cultural sector of many kinds, and are wanting to come back to study and to reinvestigate or to deepen their knowledge in a particular area through this thing called a research degree, which is a very fairly long period of study, deeply investing yourself in a particular topic, such that by the end of that period of study, you will be the expert in that area of research, whether that is research that is through creative practice, whether that's research that is done through a more social science methodology or more historical in nature. The type of researchers that we have here at UAL are very inclusive in nature and very broad in scope. So that's both the type of person and the type of study that's going on. And so we're getting some lovely indications of both a breadth of people from a breadth of places across the world, but also in terms of the type of topics and interests that you have. Really fantastic to see those coming in. And they are indicative, the things you're seeing there, of the kind of people that we have here at UAL that you'd be joining with us. In terms of why people do a PhD, it might be that you're really particularly thinking, commonly people have got a deep curiosity. They really want to study something and find out or make a difference in something they find out to a particular group. So it might be very personally motivated. It might be something about making a change in a particular society or a particular process, and you want to make a difference there. But all people that do PhDs really have to be ready to make this long and deep commitment to a topic. People study both full-time and part-time, and we have the two core degrees that we have is the MPhil into PhD route, or the PhD by published works, which is a different kind of award, which we'll talk about shortly. And people go out of degrees in many different directions. So obviously some people might be thinking of doing a research degree because they're really wanting to make a career in academia and wanting to work in a university. But equally, many of our students go either back out into industry and go to work for cultural arts and industry organizations, either back to where they were, but with this deep knowledge and this deeply new place, or as a shift in career route, a shift in direction, where they can take the breadth of research skills that you develop through a degree into a different type of work environment. So I think it's important in there to note that a research degree will give you a real depth of knowledge about a very particular subject, the thing you are choosing to study and choosing to research in detail. But it will also, importantly, develop you as a strategic and critical and creative thinker. And so you can bring those skills into many walks of life and areas of work. Next slide, please. Right. And next slide, please. Thank you, Septin. Great. So that was a little video that really is trying to capture something about the spirit and energy of UAL. You'll see we're a university that focuses on the creative arts, but that is a very encompassing range and approach to creative arts. So we have right through from work in film, media, creative computing and technology, through to fine art, design, areas around fashion and communication more broadly, as well as specialisms in areas such as sustainable practices, areas around business and development. So we've got quite a broad and rich range of offer in relationship to this area that's called Arts, Design and Communication Research as a specialist institution in that area. And indeed, we're one of the largest providers of arts education and have one of the largest populations of researchers in arts education. So we're one university, UAL, but we're made up of these 6 colleges, which we'll hear from shortly, and research institutes that have these long and deep histories that they might speak a little about, my colleagues will speak a little bit about in terms of their presentations, how we work together as a university whilst really celebrating the distinct identity of our different colleges. So we have something coming up to 20,000 students from all over the world, and around 400 research degree students that you'll be joining. We do well in our rankings, both in terms of the UK Research Excellence Framework, which is a framework that assesses the quality of the research environment and the quality of the research outputs in terms of the different disciplines. And in arts and design, we are top institution in that assessment framework. And we've also received many awards and prizes for the work we're doing here, which is a real testament to the quality of the researchers that you could be working with here. And as a specialist arts university, as you might expect, there are both facilities and pieces of technology and equipment that are aligned with those disciplines, if how they work and how you access those equipment will be to do with the kind of project you're doing. You might think about what does it you need in order to do your project well, and we can speak with you about what resources we have to support those things. Next slide, please. So here you'll see some screenshots that are from our website that indicate some of the ways we structure our research environment here at UAL. So we have what are called 4 research institutes, one in creative computing, who directly take on board PhD students. And they'll be talking to you later in a little while today. We also have the Decolonising Arts Institute, the Fashion, Textiles and Technology Institute, and the Storytelling Institute. These institutes capture something of our shared interests and strengths in research, and they are ones that feed through a lot of the work we're doing in the colleges of where your work will be more directly supported. And then you'll see in the bottom line there images from our research centres. And we have research centres and various other clusters and groupings. They're ways to bring together staff and research students together to investigate and deepen particular areas of study and to share and collect insights together. And so you'll see there 4 of our examples of 4 of our research centres that offer seminar environments, opportunities for you to present work, and also are supporting externally funded research projects, which again give you a very particular environment in which to connect and to think about how your work might come into communication, come into dialogue with others. So I invite you to just search those out. If you put in any of these names into a search engine, you'll come across them easily enough. So it's something to have a look at those research environments. Next slide, please. So in a moment, you're going to meet from each of our colleges. And we're going to have little presentations from each college. You'll see we have here Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon, who work together collectively as a group of colleges, which we'll explain shortly. Central St Martin's, London College of Communication, London College of Fashion, and the Creative Computing Institute. So these are all colleges where you can find your supervisors and your research will be supported. Now, but we also work a lot across the university, which is supported by the doctoral school, and we'll hear about that after we've heard from each of our colleges. So our next slide, please, and we are going to go on to our first of three of our colleges, Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon. And Ellie, I think you're presenting this for us. Welcome, Ellie.
Hi everyone. Yes, I am going to be representing Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon. I'm the research manager for the three colleges, and as Vida's just said, we are three separate colleges with their individual personalities, and we join together in the research department. Each of our colleges have different specialisms. So Wimbledon is primarily socially engaged theatre and performance. So that includes theatre making, directing, stage design, acting, costume, and emerging technologies in that area as well, and scenography. So there's a huge range of performance items under that umbrella. Camberwell, there's printmaking, fine art, drawing, computational arts, graphic design, illustration, as well as photography and sculpture. And then Chelsea also has an overlap of fine art, specialising in archives and collections, black art and modernism, curation, design. We've got circular and sustainable design, creative health and well-being, curation, decolonisation, as well as things like textile design and material practices. There are lots of crossovers between the colleges in terms of those kind of areas of expertise. And indeed, that's reflected in the way that we provide PhD supervision that often straddles those colleges and often straddles those areas. We really welcome interdisciplinary projects. We have a local programme that runs to complement the central programme that's offered by the doctoral school, which will be covered later in the session. So we try to kind of dovetail with that central offering, covering things like preparing for your confirmation and your viva, presenting papers and visual material. And we also run a first year seminar series that really helps to kind of gel together as a cohort, and give some companionship on the kind of PhD journey, which can often be perceived as quite, sort of siloed with everyone's different areas of specialism. We've got a team at the college to support you, which is my team, essentially, where the team I sit in. So there's me as the research manager, and then we've got Sergio, who is our research degrees coordinator, and he actually sits both at CCW and LCC, and we'll be talking to you a bit later about LCC. But it's really important. We're trying to build a PhD community that has that kind of built-in support through the team. And some of the ways that we support that community are the schemes that we run. So there's the annual exhibition, which is open to all PhD students at CCW. That runs every autumn term. There are regular events where staff and students can network together. So they're termly. We have lots of kind of community little groups. So we have a gardening group. We're lucky enough to have some terraces at Chelsea, which are ring fenced for research use. So we've got all sorts of things being planted, and we're finally seeing some bulbs emerge, which is quite nice at this time of year. We've also got things on site. We've got a dedicated study space for our PhD students. We have lockers so people can leave things on site. And we've also got a really great relationship with the library across Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon. So lots of opportunities to be involved in their activities as well. One of the kind of unique opportunities we have at CCW, sorry, Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon, just slipping into some internal acronyms. The British School at Athens is a partnership that we've had for nearly 10 years now. And that's the opportunity for a research student to go over to Athens for 2 to 3 months. And it's offered annually to have a residency, essentially. So they offer studio space and accommodation, and there's a bursary as well to cover things like travel costs. It's a really great opportunity to kind of immerse yourself in your work and in relation to their research as well. So we really encourage people to consider that when they're applying, and think about how that might be something you might want to go for. Which leads me on to, if we could have the next slide, please. So Tina Rowe is one of our current PhD students. She's actually also a student rep. So we have at least 2 student reps each year that then can kind of work as a connecting bridge between the student body and the kind of different mechanisms across the colleges that are there to support students. So they sit on committees and they run regular social events. Tina is also our most recent awardee for the British School at Athens residency. So she's just finished that last year, and she came back and gave a brilliant talk about her time there in January. And she's a really good example of the kind of cross-disciplinary approach that a lot of our PhD students have at our colleges. So her work centres on the photographic negative and the importance of specialist space at a time when digital technologies are dominating the arts. So she works with lots of tools of analogue photography to explore the ways that human presence is recorded and lost in the landscape. And her work makes use of material possibilities of light and light-sensitive chemicals on different substrates. Her practice explores collaborative portraiture making. So that's just kind of a real snapshot of the different ways in which your work could be pursued through a research degree with us. And I think that's pretty much all the things I had on my beautiful list of things that we offer. But I'll be obviously around if you have any specific questions about Camberwell, Chelsea and Wimbledon.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ellie. Next slide, please. So I'm now handing over to you, Katerina, to tell us about Central St Martin's.
Thank you, Vida. Hello, everyone. I'm Caterina Albano. I'm a reader in visual culture and the coordinator for the PhD program at Central St Martin's. I work closely with the Dean of Research and Knowledge Exchange, Helen Brooks, and the Associate Dean of Research, Malpas, as part of the researcher team at Central St Martin. As you will know, Central St Martin is a college of art and design, and has a strong ethos on engaging with global challenges through making and thinking and actions. The current PhD cohort at Central St Martin has over 116 students. Our researchers work across a broad range of subjects that include more standard text-based research, archival research, that also uses the college museum and archives, but also and mostly practice-based research. around all the areas of art and design that are supported at the college, from fashion to graphic communication, spatial practices, fine art, performance, product design, and biodesign. Among the resources available at Central St. Martin's, there is a biolab and a thriving communities of researchers that work on sustainability around the different areas of design. The UL program of supporting the PhD is complemented at Central St. Martin's by a local program of seminars and workshops, and also of the student-led group that relate to a discussion around philosophy, ethics, and around the process itself of making and doing during the PhD through Test Lab. We have a research room for PhDs, which is a quiet space with lockers and other facilities for studying, and also access to a range of other resources. As part of being part of the research culture at Central St. Martin's, you will be welcome in participating to our annual exhibition, which take place in the library in March. And you can see some of the work which are currently on display in the library, and the symposium that we annually run is a PhD-led symposium, and this year the theme was Play Dead, and the researcher occupied the main area of the college through a range of activities that brought together making, reflecting, and working together. As part of the research community at Central St. Martin, you will also be welcome to join the communities of practices of research that are currently running in the college, and more generally to join all the other activities that are part of the offer of the college that has a very lively and range of events and talk running throughout the year. The research room is situated in the library area of the college, and as a college we run in a different period of the year a 24-hour opening of the library. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to contact me, and I will be very happy to welcome you at Central St. Martin's. Thank you.
There's one more slide for you, Katerina, if you wanted to take this one.
Oh, yes. This is one of our current PhD students, Simon Banus. Simon is almost close to completing their research degrees, which is on digital curating.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. And so I'm inviting, I think it's Sergio, you're going to take this slide for us.
Can you hear me and see me?
We can.
Brilliant. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for making the time for being with us here today. You've already heard a lot from my colleagues. That does apply also to London College of Communication, or LCC as we call it for short, in terms of interdisciplinarity and the ethos and environment for research that you will find at different colleges and UAL at large. But I'll focus a little bit on aspects that pertain to what happens at LCC. It is an institution with a lot of history in London. It became London College of Printing in 1960, but its original roots go back to the late 1800s. It's currently proudly a very active college member of UAL, and it is divided into three schools: media, screen, and design. These three schools kind of do what they say on the tin, but the truth is also that particularly at a research and doctoral research level, these three schools are somewhat fluid reference points. Some of our PhD researchers feel more identified with one of the schools, media, screen, and design, but a lot of them work across the schools. They are structures that are there, but are very fluid at the research level, because a lot of the work that happens in research, staff research, but also doctoral research at LCC, as well as other colleges at our university, runs across disciplines, sometimes across colleges. So it's not unusual for PhD students at UAL to be supervised across more than one college. And we always, I think I can speak for everyone when I say we are always interested in projects that bring together disciplines, areas, topics, and problems that have not kind of been explored together. It's always nice to see supervisors who have not worked together in the past working together. It means that something new is happening. So we love interdisciplinary research, and LCC is a good example of that. In that, for example, our areas of research include sound arts and music. You might have heard of CRISAP, which is one of our research areas or research centers. We also have a long history and very active group of people working on comics research, comics books research. LCC is well known internationally for that area of research, but also other parts of what you might call communication fields across media, screen, and design, like social media and social change through our digital cultures and economies research hub, but also branding and branding in relationship to marketing, but how media and advertising are changing and merging nowadays in relationship to social media, but also not, and how regulation and governance needs to evolve and adapt to meet those technological and social changes. So a lot of the research that we do in all of these areas can have, or tends to have, an important social change, political, or even activist component. It doesn't have to, but it very often has. And it is often very interdisciplinary in its scope. If I can have the next slide, please. As one example, I.T. Young's research is, you might say, about illustration, but it is also a lot more about than just illustration. It's a PhD practice-based research project around illustration and mental health, more specifically portraying anxiety disorders in picture books. So how do picture books can be used as an interface between therapy and young adults? So a lot of our applicants and PhD researchers can easily identify, I'm a musician, or I'm a designer, or I'm an illustrator, or I am a filmmaker. But the depth that comes with that is that then the films or the illustrations or the books or the work that they exhibit, the depth that carries with it is often pulling in a range of other disciplines that makes a lot of the work that happens here really interesting. IT's works have been shortlisted in several international illustration competitions. Her books are on sale, and all of this while she's doing her PhD, and I think also teaching, if I'm not mistaken. So an example of very active member of our PhD community. This community is composed of very close to 100 researchers. So very diverse, very active, very international. And one way of meeting this community, if you are interested in pursuing a PhD at LCC, is to come and attend the exhibition of PhD work that we have at LCC starting this week. I'll put a link in the chat to Unfolding Narratives. I'll just drop the link so that I'm not spending time writing in the chat while I'm talking to you. In that link, you'll see the range of events that are prepared for this year around PhD research. We have a symposium, we have an exhibition, but also for people who are thinking of doing a PhD at LCC, we have this Friday, the 14th, the link is also in that page I've just shared, what we called a meet and greet, where if you're interested in finding out more, or actually if you decided that you want to apply to do a PhD at LCC, you can come and meet us in person, hear a little bit from us about what doing research at LCC is like, but also ask your own questions in person about whatever it might be that's on your mind about the process or being here or what LCC feels like. You'll be able to see the exhibition of work that our PhDs have put together. You are more than welcome to get a ticket. They are free for this event, which will give you a chance to talk to us a little bit more in depth about what happens at LCC. I think we remain open to, at the end of the session, having a bit of a Q&A session, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have anything that pertains particularly to LCC in general or about the meet and greet that we have on Friday, don't hesitate to drop it in the chat and I'll be able to and happy to get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Next slide, please. Agnes.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Agnès Rocamora. I'm a professor of social and cultural studies at LCF, and I'm also the PhD coordinator here. So I'm going to sort of talk a bit about LCF. A lot of the things that I would want to mention have been covered in a way by my colleagues. We sort of share the same similar practices, ethos, and understanding of how research and PhD researchers fit in our institution. So the first thing to say probably is that we specialize on fashion, and it was interesting to see some of you see some familiar name actually. First, hello in the chat, but also people coming who have already done some work or study on fashion and already covering some of the vast areas of disciplines, topics, and practices that LCF specializes in. So the core is fashion, but fashion to be understood in a very broad sense of the term. It's fashion, body, dress, appearance, material cultures, but it's also in terms of industry, production, manufacture, distribution, consumption. So it really is vast. I would say there's not potentially any kind of topic or discipline that we couldn't cover. We have colleagues and PhD researchers in history, curation, sociology, psychology, marketing, design, photography, cosmetic sciences, and so on. So again, a very broad approach. And again, I guess, like something that my colleagues said, very interested in cross-disciplinarity. What brings people to LCF is this sort of centered interest on fashion. But one of the richness of the research taking place is its ability to cross disciplines and create dialogues between colleagues and between areas of research. And of course, alongside our own colleges, we do supervise, of course, as my colleagues were saying, across the university. So again, the matter being is we bring together supervisory teams that are the best adapted or the best enabled to support a project. My colleagues Vidaz already mentioned some of the research centers, two in particular that are based at LCF and are both world-leading. The Center for Sustainable Fashion, no doubt many people among you will have heard about that very, very groundbreaking research center, and of course does a lot and support a lot of research projects around sustainability. And we also have the Center for Fashion Curation. Again, very porous. We have, for instance, a research project from a PhD researcher, which is about curation and sustainability of curatorial practices in fashion. So dialogues between the centers, but also between the disciplines. But we also have other formations beyond the research centers, which we call hubs and networks and labs, which bring together established researchers, academics, as well as PhD researchers to discuss, explore their project in more or less formal setting and in different kind of formats. We have, for instance, an AI research enterprise and education network. We have a transnational fashion network. We have an active material lab. And of course, this can be reconfigured every year depending on interest. So it's a fairly kind of fluid, agile, is a trendy word, configuration of communities of interest and practices. And we, of course, also have another lab called the Performing Dress Lab, which works with Aalto University in Finland and RMIT in Melbourne. So again, extended beyond the UK network of fashion specialists, practitioners and scholars, but also consolidating relationships with institutions across the world, which is, of course, key for research, practice and teaching. As with my colleagues, we are always organizing events, different people in charge of organizing them, whether it's lecturers, students. We have, of course, a communication center or that sort of leads on these kind of events. But to give you an example, every year we have one or two key conferences. In 2022, for instance, we had the Costume Institute of African Diaspora's Biennial Dress Conference. At the end of last year, we had a conference on fashion, feminism, and the female gaze. And I really like mentioning that one because it was organized by and around the work of a colleague, Felice McDowell, Dr. Felice McDowell, who had done an MA, then moved on to do their PhD to carry on exploring some of the themes looked at their MA. They have now become one of our colleagues and organized this conference around a book based on their PhD. So a very, very vibrant encounter at which MAs, PhDs, and colleagues, the very well-renowned Professor Angela McRobbie spoke. So it was a very, very rich event. And now in March, which is now basically next week or the week after, we have a major conference, the 27th annual conference of an organization called IFTI. It's an organization that brings together all the world leading fashion institutions from 23 countries. And in about 10 days for about a week, they were congregating at LCF in our new building to exchange ideas on fashion education, fashion research, and again here bringing in dialogue with each other lecturers, but also so established researchers, but also PhD researchers. I just mentioned our new building, which is located in Stratford, which opened in 2023 and brings together all the different sort of disciplines, areas of research. It's part now of what is known as East Bank, defined as some sort of cultural quarter that consolidates and facilitates collaborations between key cultural institutions. So our neighbors are the BBC, the V&A, Sadler's Well, UCL. So again, here the location is really key in terms of exploring dialogues, partnerships between all these key sort of world-leading cultural institutions. And at this building, we have, of course, like in the other buildings, a lot of studios and specialist spaces supported by technicians. We have a digital learning lab. We have, of course, a PhD-based room where students have space to do research quietly, but also practice work and meet. They organize on a regular basis tea and cakes events. And of course, we have a library and a very, very strong archive. And to conclude in terms of a more specifically led student experience, so on top of the very rich program of support of the PhD Live that takes place at the doctoral school, we have college-based event on average maybe twice a month, and again a very different configuration. depending and then more or less led by what the PhD researchers want. So it can be workshop, it can be seminars, it can be in conversation, but they are also followed by a moment during which we all congregate around pizza and drinks, which also helps network and sometimes move away from what can be a sort of a bit of a lonely research experience doing a PhD, but which of course at UAL and in all the colleges we work towards making sure and supporting you, and you have all platforms and moments for sharing ideas and meeting with other peers. We have a whole host of social events also, and cultural events. We have a cultural program departments that lead on a series of events, exhibition, encounters with industry, public. Again, a wide variety of formats. You will find a lot of information online. In June, for instance, we have UAL's Future Fashion Film Festival, which is going to be very exciting again, and always in the spirit of supporting all researchers, and I'm including PhD researchers' work, but also in consolidating dialogue, and of course supporting the trajectories of PhDs through academic and industry life. Thank you.
There's one more slide for you, Agnes.
Of course, sorry about that. Fiona. Yes, Fiona is doing her PhD at LCF in the field of sociology. She's doing some really groundbreaking work on the emergence of the Rwandan field of fashion designers. She's in her 4th year now. She's done intensive field work in Kigali and in the rest of Rwanda to look at the economic, social, cultural, and political conditions of work and emergence, as I was saying a bit earlier, of fashion designers. She's been really active in supporting and disseminating her work. She gave a talk at an international conference 2 weeks ago in Florence. She's presented her work at the V&A. She's on various platforms, and she's doing some really groundbreaking work in thinking about post-colonial research methods and decolonizing research methods, and the dialogue between, in this particular case, the work of a French sociologist called Pierre Bourdieu, and its conditions of adaptability and reflection on an African and more specifically Rwandan context. So again, check out her work. She's doing some really beautiful research there.
Thank you very much. Next slide, please. And I'm handing over to you, B.
Hi, yeah. So I'm B. I'm representing the Creative Computing Institute, and my pronouns are they and them. So the Creative Computing Institute brings together sort of folks from an artistic and or science background and with a technical interest. So we're looking for kind of transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary researchers, interdisciplinary fields. Folks often come with a combination of interests. Maybe they have an artistic practice and they want to bring that into a computing practice, or other way around. Maybe they've come from a computing practice or an animation practice and they want to develop that into something more artistic. What we're looking for as supervisors is folks who have that combination of skills, but maybe not at the same level. So we have a lot of support for folks, both on the technical level and the research level. We support students who do mixed methods research, qualitative, quantitative, and practice-based. And our supervisors range from people with backgrounds in robotics, backgrounds in artificial intelligence, backgrounds in music, film and media. So kind of the whole gamut. As well as people who do things like animation and drawing and kind of more traditional arts. One of the things we would say is that in general, doing a PhD is very difficult. It's very challenging. I've found that. I think everyone here who's done a PhD would agree with that. And if you are thinking about doing a PhD with us, there's a couple of things I would suggest. One is look at our faculty, look at the folks who could support you, find a PhD supervisor, reach out to them, have a conversation with them, either formally or informally. If you don't feel you have the set of skills that you need, that's totally fine. You can either do a master's degree somewhere else and come back to us, or look at the masters that we offer. I particularly highlight our Masters of Research, partly because I teach on it. But I think it's a really fantastic way of developing your research skills and kind of getting your teeth stuck into research before you're doing your PhD. I've supported several students who've come from the Masters of Research onto the PhD program, and have used that to kind of start to develop their research interest, develop their research practice, and even have a paper published, so they know what they're getting into. And I think, you know, I think it's a really exciting place to come and work at the Creative Computing Institute. It's a place where we offer something a little bit different that you might not find at UAL, or anywhere else. We're one of the few kind of creative computing focused departments. And it's a place you can do something a little bit different, but it's also a place where you might want to have cross college supervision. So you have one supervisor maybe at CCI who can support you with something like the technical aspects of a project, and then maybe someone who's at somewhere like LCC, supporting you on some of the kind of communication side of things. Do we want to look at the next slide, maybe? So I just wanted to use this slide to highlight one of our students, Jifu, because Jifu's background is in animation and then digital design and illustration. So you can sort of see that kind of artistic background, but then she's come to the CCI and she started to focus on kind of AI generation and immersive data and visualization. So she's starting to use some of the tools we have. So she's working with kind of cutting edge tools like the Apple Vision Pro, 3D imaging tools, AI, getting to think about how to visualize data, working with kind of really big social and kind of scientific areas, and doing really interesting things that kind of use cutting edge research and cutting edge technology to say something about the world. And she's kind of aiming to bridge the gap between complex data interpretation and visual understandings of emerging technologies. This project here that we've got a video of that we're not going to watch now, but you can look up another time, was her opportunity to kind of work with folks from Amiro and the Frida Fund to kind of create an AI representation of Frida Kahlo. And you know, Jifu sort of was able to say, you know, as the main organizer, she was able to enjoy working alongside UAL alumni as well as students on this sort of first of a kind project. So we kind of get this visual and AI representation of a great artist, which shows you the ways in which at CCI we're able to bring together lots of different areas to create really exciting PhD projects. We have about, I think, 20 to 30 PhD students at the moment. It's a growing cohort. They meet almost every week for events, and it's a really tight-knit group, and I've always been really excited to work with them. They're always doing fascinating things and a really exciting group of people. So it'd be great to see some of you joining us if we get a chance.
Thank you very much, Ben. Next slide, please. I'm going to share a little about a new partnership that we have developed at UAL with London Contemporary Dance School. It was a partnership I was really excited to develop on my arrival at UAL, and the launch attached to the launch of the doctoral school, being a movement specialist myself. So the partnership we have with them is a co-supervision relationship. So it means you would be registered as a student at UAL and then have the benefit of being co-supervised by a colleague at London Contemporary Dance School. And also that will give you access to some of their facilities and their public program and research environment. So it's a really great opportunity if you're a movement-based researcher, or whether that be in choreographic work or pedagogic work, or indeed in creative computing and movement. We do have a collaborative student that's from Creative Computing Institute and London Contemporary Dance School at the moment. It's an opportunity to kind of bring those disciplines together and to work across our two organisations. If you just bring me the next slide. Fantastic. So this just gives you an idea of a couple of their series of some of their areas of interest, or we're interested in bringing together across UAL and London Contemporary Dance School. So particular interest in creative practice, which, as you might have gathered from all the presentations this morning, we have a strong interest at UAL in creative practice of all kinds, and in particularly with London Contemporary Dance School in choreographic practice. As well as thinking about this kind of cross arts and interdisciplinary lens, which again, many of my colleagues have described to you kind of, so you might have a very particular disciplinary home, and in this case in dance, but how do you then take that and connect across disciplines or bring your particular discipline into another discipline to really generate something new and to give you new insights? They're interested particularly in contemporary practice and how this might relate to historical understandings and rethinking of historical dance practices, as well as using archival material. And they're interested, and we're interested in working with them in terms of a range of methodologies and theoretical approaches. If you're interested in hearing directly from our colleagues at London Contemporary Dance School, we've just put in the chat the link to that webinar, which will repeat some of the things that we're going to talk about today, but more specifically, you'll hear directly from the staff there. And just some guidance, if you are applying for that route, you will need to say so in your application, and we'll remind you of that when we get onto the application processes slide. So we're just going to go on. If we just go on to the next slide for me, just before I hand over to colleagues on this slide, we've been talking at you a while. If you haven't moved for a bit, I suggest you do. That might be a stand up, it might be grab some water, it might be a stretch, whatever that means. But to just enliven yourself a little, because we're about halfway through and you've been listening a long time. But key things I hope you've heard have been about disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity and how they might work together. The crossing over across schools and the work that we're doing to bring schools together. The kind of what you might kind of making a difference through a PhD, what you might say, if how does your work not make just a difference to you, but make a difference to the world, make a difference to a profession, make a difference to a society. And then hopefully you've got a real sense of the efforts that we're really making to bring people together into community. A few people have mentioned that PhDs can appear quite a lonely experience, and we really work to bring you into cohort and bring you together. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that from my colleague, and it's Alison, I think I'm handing over to now to speak about how we work to support supervision and researcher development. Alison, handing over to you.
Thank you, Vida. And it's very nice to be here. And I also see a couple of familiar names in the audience. So it's nice to see you here in this context. Yeah, so slightly switching gears formally into the conversation, the UAL's doctoral school, which has been mentioned a couple of times. My name is Alison Green and I have a kind of dual role I'm at Central St. Martin's. I'm a reader in art, curating, and culture, and I contribute into the MA in curating there, as well as supervise PhD students who are registered at CSM. And I am also Director of Doctoral Development and Training at UAL's Doctoral School. And I do that alongside Dr. Bob Wally, Vida as Dean, and also Said Tin Wan and the PGR team. So I'm going to speak a little bit here about just what the kind of program support is, and this encompasses both supervision and what we call the researcher development program. And I'm just going to say I've just seen that Bob's joined, so I'm going to say a few words, and then if Bob would like invite her in as well. So. Yeah, as I mentioned, what we see is we've got we really want to think about kind of this like holistic or kind of development in the round. So not just you coming and doing a kind of focused research project, which you will do, but that sense that more broadly, to do a research degree is to develop your skills and faculties and capacities as a researcher, and that these have many applications in different career routes. So we did want to echo what others have said about the sometimes lonely and sometimes isolating experience of doing a PhD, and to say, to begin with talking about the agency of not being one. And this is a recognition that communities of art, design, and communication researchers are not individuals. We are not one and not reducible to sharp corners. And if you join us, and when you join us, you will be supported in your project by a development program as well as a team of supervisors. Your supervisors will be expert in research areas across the disciplines and fields that we engage with at UAL. As others have mentioned, your supervisors may come from different colleges or institutes. Most teams are comprised of 2 supervisors. One of them will be your director of studies, and normally your director of studies is teaches at the college or institute where you are enrolled. Others have shared some links that show you where to maybe do some research about finding out who it would be good to align yourself with, and to encourage you to reach out to individual potential supervisors. Our researcher development program is co-delivered by the doctoral school, by colleges and institutes, and offers weekly gatherings, workshops, seminars, meetings on different scales and in different formats. We center community building, critical and creative methods, and well-being in open, generative discussions, as well as specific skillings in research practices. And the program is designed to support you throughout your time on your research degree. Although probably we focused a lot in the beginning, we really are thinking a lot about the kinds of support that you need throughout the whole journey, not just what we call the milestones, but these moments in between. And again, going back to thinking about more than just your project, but a kind of a full development as a researcher. We think that the research development program runs through your research projects like a red thread. And I'm just checking to see, Bob, would you like to come in at this moment?
Thank you. This is so beautifully put, Alison, as ever. And apologies for those in the room. I have been in a different online space as part of the research development program. Absolutely talking about this red thread and the idea of practice research, but that red thread and the thing that pulls you through, the clue, the thing that situates you and pulls you through your project. The doctoral school is an integral part of that, not just in terms of a space and place, in terms of an online space and place as well. So a place where we might do our thinking on our feet, kind of lightly, to take the risk in the space. But it also is a structure, a framework that goes alongside supervision, with a community that really helps support you and nourish your way through this with a sense of kindness and care and attention, because what you are intending to do is immense and incredible, and you already have my respect. So thank you. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Just maybe I'm going to highlight a couple of things that we focus on. And as just to echo Bob, in this development program, we place you and your research at the center where you are already expert. So we do research methodologies and methods, things like training in practice-led and practice-based methodologies, introduction to qualitative and quantitative research methods, ethical considerations in research. We cover or focus on theoretical and conceptual frameworks, things like critical theory, philosophy of art, epistemologies of practice, offering workshops and seminars and key thinkers in design, performance, media research, amongst others. We offer workshops on professional and academic development, such as funding applications, pathways to publication, preparing for conference presentations and other kinds of presentations, things like what we call career crafting. So thinking about throughout your research degree, how what you're doing builds on, feeds into, helps you towards or in the work that you are doing and would like to do. We focus on impact, knowledge exchange, and public engagement, things like engaging audiences beyond academia, developing partnerships with industry, participating in policy, and with community groups. There's also thesis development and supervision that would be expected and supported by the research and development program, as well as your regular supervisory meetings and discussions with your peers. And lastly, we really center peer-led and cross-disciplinary collaboration to facilitate and help nurture the kinds of interdisciplinary work that so many colleagues have been talking about today. And one of the ways we've been doing that this year is with the idea of a kind of peer-led groups. We're calling them nodes, this idea that all research students may avail themselves of one or more peer-led groups, and this really being a kind of key part of your research experience, your research journey. And these can be small, they can be larger, they can be announced, they can be open, they can be closed, they can be private. But this idea of the peer group, and these being very responsive, very agile, and very adaptive. So to sum up, the research and development program is designed to be flexible, and it recognizes that as creative and critical researchers, you are at the edge of your practices, your professional fields, and your knowledge systems. You are already experts, and you are very welcome. Thank you.
Alison, just before we move the slide, can I just pop back a minute? Pop back while we said Tim. And I'm just going to invite you to say something about the image that we have on that slide.
Thank you.
Can you just go back one?
We know this, it gets stuck on this.
Sorry, it's stuck on
Bob, you describe it. You did so well.
So the image that you'll have to cast your memory back. So the image that as Alison was speaking there was of a group of individuals kind of clustered around the corner. And that is situated in the doctoral school. That is kind of this moment of the doctoral school space is both a blank space and a kind of a imbricated messy space, a kind of a space that is always already available for moments, here we go, to place the work, to bring bodies in. This idea of this last kind of note, platforms for discussion, sharing and exchange. This is absolutely kind of a beautiful moment where Sarah was inviting those in to play, to respond to. She spoke beautifully to her project. And this is typical of moments that we have in different formats. Some are more performative, some are more presentational mode, in which the doctoral school becomes enfleshed, really comes kind of populated with bodies, with ideas, with knowledges, to be at that very edge of both your projects, of new knowledges, substantial new insights. And that is immense to be just part of and to be in and amongst. Thank you, Bida, for letting me speak, and Alison.
Thank you, Bob. And Sedton, thank you for finding our way back to that slide. We'll go forward one now. And just to say, this video that we're about to show you is actually the event that is currently running this year's iteration. We had the link in the chat earlier around an event at London College of Communication that happens annually. And it just gives you a flavour of one of the types of event, one of these kind of gatherings, and the student experience of that event. So if you'd like to play this video for us now.
Unfolding Narratives 3 is an exhibition showing 13 postgraduate research students who are all at varying degrees of their research journey. The research happening is live, it's active, and people can even be a part of that research as they visit the exhibition.
So research is one of the most exciting areas in what we do. As a university, we stand for the imagination in action. And one of the great things about showing work in progress is that the creator, the artist, the doctoral student gets to test out, try out their ideas in the world, see what kind of echo they get back from that, and then that informs the development of their work.
This was my first time doing an exhibition, and this was my first time drawing something for an exhibition. I have a theoretical background rather than a practical background. This meant that I got to collaborate with a lot of other students, which I haven't had the chance to do before.
Being able to work with the curator and the technician team has really allowed me to understand what I am trying to do with my practice a lot more. It's also been extremely positive to be able to engage with other students' work and to meet them.
We're going across all different sorts of media, loads of different research methodologies, research and practice space. The different students have used the exhibition space totally differently.
What a creative institution or research environment can provide is really the space to explore where practice and where research sort of entangle. Understand that sometimes the methods of research are actually part of your own practice.
The value in showing research work is that you get other people to consider the things you're thinking about. Does it communicate anything? Does it have any value? What does it make people think about, and how does it make people feel?
It's not just what goes into the final PhD output, but the process that refines your thinking in getting there and making sure there are windows out for other students, others in our community, members of the public to interact with that work and get a sense of whether it has resonance and how it can have relevance.
Thank you. And next slide, please. I'm thinking, Jane, is it Emily? I see Emily is unmuted. Emily, I'm handing over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vida. Hello, everyone. My name's Emily Ruff. I'm the Assistant Head of Postgraduate Research, and I work alongside Jane and the rest of the postgraduate research team within the doctoral school. I guess I want to talk a little bit about how to apply. On our website, which you can see there on the slide, there's some information about how to apply, and it takes you through each step of the application process. It gives you information about how to develop a proposal, where you can look for college specialisms and supervisors. And there's also some links on there to funding, so information about visas. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so how to apply. We welcome applications throughout the year. We have deadlines though, because we have specific entry points. So we offer an entry point in late September and another one in early January. If you're looking to apply for the September date, so the next one being September 2025, for the 25-26 academic year, we're currently open for applications now, and the final application deadline is April 30th. That deadline is a hard deadline, so we can't accept late applications, I'm afraid. If you're looking to apply for the January start date instead, we'll open applications in early June. And the deadline for the January start is August 31st, 2025. As Vida has just said there, in her previous talk about London Contemporary Dance, is if you are applying for that, PhD, please make a note of that in the application. There's a section where it asks you for your proposed research thesis title. So if you put it in there, that way we can pick up your application for LCDF. When you apply, it's a kind of typical application form, asks you for your personal details, your qualifications, including any you're currently undertaking. It will also ask you for work experience. We ask for a copy of your CV. If you've already got your qualifications, we'll ask you to upload a couple of copies of those. You'll be asked for a brief personal statement, which is where you can express anything else that you haven't been able to get across in the rest of the application. It will ask for 2 references. You don't have to have those at the time of application. You can just put in details, and we will automatically email those referees. And then finally, the most important part of the application is your research proposal. Now, that's the bit that you really need to sort of spend the most amount of time on. Alison will be talking a bit more about that in the next slide. But have a look on our application page for that information about how to write a research proposal. And please make sure that you really use that information to guide you in your research proposal. Once you've submitted your application, that will then go on for college review. So you apply to one college. So you can only apply to one college. But if you're not entirely sure which college to apply for, or if, particularly in the case of interdisciplinary subjects, it might be that you're not quite sure where you sit, that's fine, don't worry, just apply to one. And then if, when we send it on for college review, they think that actually this project might fit better in one of the other colleges, we then send it on to review for another college. So typically some applications might actually be passed to more than one college, sometimes even more than 2, if it's one of those projects that might fit best somewhere else. So don't worry too much about that. Once your application has been reviewed by the college, if they believe that it's strong enough to go on to the next stage, and we have supervisory capacity and support available for your project, then we would offer you an interview. Interviews typically will have at the panel at least one of your proposed supervisory team, and another representative from the college. Usually the panel is 2 or 3 people. The interviews typically are about an hour. You'll be asked to do a short presentation of your research. Now, the format for that is entirely up to you. We'll give you kind of a few pointers about what you should include, but really it's up to you how you present that. We'll also provide you with a list of subject areas that might be discussed in the interview. So you're not coming into it blind. So you can think about the things that you might be asked within that interview. The interview then might kind of go off into different areas depending on kind of what your answers are. But we give you that information in advance to kind of help you feel confident going into that interview. If after interview we're going to offer you a place, we'll send you an offer. You would need to have met any entry requirements of the offer by the 31st of July if you're wanting to start in September, or by the end of November if you're starting in January. And I'll talk a bit more about entry requirements a bit later on. We also have some visa support available through our student advice department. So if you've got a specific visa question, if it's kind of beyond the general, which we might be able to answer, then we'll put you in touch with our student advice team who can offer you specialist support. We issue CASs for you if you're applying for a student route visa, and they are made available from the end of June, usually kind of into August, depending on what point you've met the entry requirement. but we do offer you support in that application process, which is particularly helpful if you've not had to apply for one before. I'm just going to say a note about when you apply. We talked earlier about finding researchers within your subject area at UAL, and my colleagues have put that link to where you can find staff research profile in the chat. Have a look at that. That's a really useful way to kind of, well, one, find out which college you might want to apply to, but also to see and approach potential supervisors. But don't worry too much if you can't do that, or you're not comfortable doing that, or you're just not sure. We will do that when we review your application, and it's our responsibility to find a supervisory team for you. Okay, so I'm going to pass on now to Alison, who's going to speak to the next slide about the research proposals.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so it's me again, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the resources that we have to support you in making your application to UAL. So it's been mentioned already that we're going to be running two sessions, one on the 25th of March and the other one on the 29th of July. And you may have noticed that these are aligned with the two deadlines for the next two entry points for the research degree program. So the 25th of March would support you towards the, or could support you directly towards the deadline on the 30th of April. And then one on the 29th of July would support you towards the one on the 30th of August. But you can sign up for either of them. So I wanted to say also that there's some written guidance as well. So in fact, I think there are three kinds of resources that we have put in place to support you in making your application. And this is whether or not you can attend the briefing session. So there's this written guidance, and that's available through the website. We've created a pre-recorded video, and you should have had access to this in your invitation to today's session. And actually, if you're planning to come one of the briefing sessions, we would request that you watch that video beforehand, because it would help us really use that time for more sort of discussions based, and sort of really center the conversation on what the participants' sort of particular needs are. We also have a Padlet, which is a kind of digital platform, a sort of digital resource that provides you sort of links and access to documents. And I'll grab that and plop that into the link so that everybody can have access to that. And so it provides you with some key documents, as well as some beyond what UAL offers. And additionally, we have a column, a place on the Padlet where you can ask questions, and myself and Bob will monitor that, and we'll endeavor to provide kind of good quality answers to any questions you have. And yeah, just to reiterate what it says on the slide here, that a good way of approaching a potential supervisor is to do so once you've spent some time formulating what your research project is. So to, for example, write them with an abstract that describes the project, or perhaps you've already started to work on your research proposal. That puts you into a good place to be able to offer them some concrete ideas about what you want to do, and put them in the best position to be able to give you concrete feedback. So I think that's pretty good. And any questions, please use our main email, researchdegrees@arts.ac.uk email. Bob, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, just to say that these sessions begin from and you'll see if you've kind of watched the video, the idea that the proposal is a kind of persuasion device, and that they're quite strange documents because you're at the very beginning of the process, but you're asked to kind of also communicate this future idea with a kind of a confidence. So the good proposal, these kind of nuts and bolts advice, if you will, are ways in which you can construct that confidence. We can not only do we see a great many of these documents, we are supervisors ourselves. We receive these, we evaluate them, we're part of the interview process, and we want to give you all that advice. We don't want to keep it to ourselves. We want to absolutely offer as much as we can, so you can take this forward and be confident. Thank you.
And just to say, to reiterate what Emily mentioned, that if the invitation to approach a supervisor, it's an invitation only. You really don't have to have done that. There might be all sorts of, you might not be able to find the person that you think might be suitable, or not know where to look, or might not be comfortable doing so, or might not get a reply. And all these things might come up in making those individual approaches. So please feel, as long as you choose a college, then we will help identify supervisors for you in that process. And it might be that you approach somebody and they don't think it's a good fit for you. So in which case, please come back to research degrees, email, or indeed you can find the research leads email addresses that are attached to each college online, and perhaps grab those and put them in the chat for you, so that we can find the best way in for you. Don't feel like naming a supervisor and working with a supervisor before you apply is a necessary requirement to entry. That's just one way in. Next slide, please.
Yes, next slide. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly touch on eligibility. There is full information on our application page, but in general, our entry requirements are a minimum of a 2-1 from an undergraduate degree. Students do most commonly come to us with a master's degree or equivalent level experience, but that's the 2-1 is the minimum. It came up in the other open day that we had, that some students say, well, I've got a master's degree, but I don't have the 2-1. I'm a bit below that in my BA. That's fine. It's kind of one or the other situation. We also do that equivalent level experience is also important. We do consider applications from students from a huge and wide backgrounds. So it might be that perhaps you've been out of education for a really long time. Perhaps you've never been in higher education, but you have significant research experience or industry experience. We do still consider applications under that kind of equivalent experience banner. So please do get in touch with us at the Research Degrees email address if you're not sure or you'd like to kind of discuss that in advance. You don't have to have met those entry requirements before you apply, but you do have to have met them before you start the course. If you're currently studying on a program and it will be finished by the time the PhD starts, you can apply with this on a student route visa. You have to have had the award by the time the PhD starts, not just to finish the course. So that's something to bear in mind. So if you're currently on an MA program that finishes and that you'll get your award in the summer, that's fine. But if you're on a program that doesn't finish until perhaps sort of late September and you won't have your award until November, then you're probably wanting to look at our January start date instead. English language requirements. So if you're not a national of a majority English speaking country, and that's defined by the UK Visas and Immigration Department, you'll need to demonstrate that you're suitably proficient in English. There's full details on our English language requirements webpage. Perhaps one of my colleagues will put that in the chat also, that you can look up to see what our language requirement is. Typically, we need you to either have a merit at master's level from a majority English-speaking country within the last 3 years before the start date of the course, or you need to have a valid English language certificate like an IELTS. The IELTS requirement, for example, is 7 overall, with a minimum of 7 in writing and a minimum of 6 in all other areas. We do accept other tests, and that information is on our website. Again, if there's something on there that you're not clear about, you can send us an email. You don't have to have met the by the conditional offer deadline, which if you're wanting to start in September will be the 31st of July. And if you're wanting to start in January, then you would need to have met it by the end of November. The only extensions that we're able to give on those is if you're on a course that's finishing perhaps in that first couple of weeks in August, or you're taking our UAL pre-sessional English course, because those courses, again, information is on the webpage. They finish usually right at the end of August, early September. So if you're doing a pre-sessional course with us, then you'll be able to have that slight extension on the entry requirement. We do require copies of formal certificates, not kind of screenshots, not the kind of informal kind of results that you get from online portals, things like that. It does need to be the formal certificate. And if they are not in English, then we also need a translation with those. But you'll be able to find information on our website about that. Thank you.
Excellent.
Hi everybody, hello again. Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about funding. There's been a few questions in the Q&A about this, so I haven't answered them as I've gone along. I've saved them for now because I think it's probably quite relevant for everybody. Many of our postgraduate research are self-funded or they're funded by their employers. There will be UAL studentships advertised very shortly, and these are applications for funded studentship projects. And that means that members of our academic staff have developed a project which does relate probably to their own research, and they would like a student to come and answer to that project through a PhD. So applications will be requested probably by the end of this month, and there'll be briefing notes with those applications and full details of the projects, and there'll be an outline advising you on how to apply for those to those funded studentships, if the subject matter of them is appropriate to you. Now, these are funded at AHRC level of funding, so it's just over 22,000 full-time per year, and it covers home rates fees. International students will probably need to cover the difference between the home rate and the international fee, but they will receive the full rate of maintenance. UK government doctoral loans are available for UK and EU settled status applicants. The total sum of spanning the whole of your PhD for 24-25 was just over 29,000. So if you're full-time, that will be split over 3 years. If you're part-time, it will be split over 6. So it does cover the fees, plus a little bit to support you throughout your PhD. UAL alumni fee discount. This is available to all students who've studied at UAL, a 20% discount for eligible applicants. This is at HE level, so if you've done a BA or an MA with us before, then you are eligible for this 20% discount, and it is applied to each year of study. 6 years for part-time, 3 years for full-time. And it doesn't matter when you did this study. If it's about 20 years since you did your MA at UAL, you're still an alumni and you're still eligible for that discount. So there's no time span set on it. We do have a staff staff development fee support for internal UAL staff who are on at least a 0.2 contract. And we know that this funding is available for applicants commencing in September 2025, and it will cover the cost of your part-time fees. There's been a few comments in the chat noting that Techne is actually in its final year. So those who get Techne awards this year and commencing 2025 will be the last Techne cohort. I'm afraid that application route is now closed. The awards will be all agreed within the next month. There is a new incarnation of AHRC awards on its way. They are AHRC Landscape Awards, and they will commence in October 2026. We do know at UAL that we are a member of a hub, so we will be able to advertise and hold some of these awards for our students and offer them as an opportunity. As things stand at the moment, there's not very much detail about them. So we're working with partners in the same hub as us. We're in the London hub, so most of the universities that are either within London or not far afield, and we're working with them to agree the way forward for those awards. But so if you're thinking about applying for 2026, keep your eye out for them. Next slide, please. This is just to keep you informed about fees for 2025 to 26 for study in the UK. The home full-time fee is 6,620. Home part-time, 3,310. The international fee is £26,310. Writing up status is 1,090. I'll just explain writing up actually, because when people normally enter writing up either when they've done 3 years full-time and they've completed all of their research and they've got a full draft of their thesis, then it's literally as a year where they complete the writing of their thesis. It's got the reduced fee of 1,090, and that's the same for part-time and full-time. To note for this that the amount of supervision you get will be reduced because you're coming very close to submission, and you will have 5 hours of supervision for your Director of Studies only for that final writing up year. And the expected duration of normal duration of PhD full-time is 3 to 4 years, part-time it's 5 to 6 years. We do have an online distance learning route which is open to international students, and the full-time fee for that is £26,310, and the part-time fee is £13,155. Just to mention, our research development programme, very many sessions are hybrid to enable so that distance learning students can attend fully, and a lot of it is recorded so that people can watch in their own time. So if you're in a time zone that makes it difficult for you to join even online, the recordings are posted for you to take part in. Next slide, please. This is to note some other application routes. We do have quite a lot of people who transfer from other universities to do their PhD at UAL, and that's quite possible for people to do. It's a slightly different application route, and it's outlined in our handbook actually what's required of you. If you are interested to transfer your research degree from another institution, if you email researchdegrees@arts.ac.uk, we'll respond with details of how to transfer your PhD to us. But effectively, what you're doing is you're bringing the research that you've already done so that you can perhaps start your PhD in the second year or third year of your study. And what we would do is we'd assess whereabouts in our program we think you should join us, at what progression point. And so then you would bring your advanced standing from your previous degree with you, and you join us a year or two into your PhD. PhD by published works is where someone has already done a significant amount of research and it's out in the public realm, and they can apply submit that work for assessment by us to decide to agree if we think that all those published works do constitute a PhD, and if they do, then the applicant can join us normally for a year, can be 2, but normally for a year. But during that year, they write about a 20,000 word document that contextualizes their published work. And then they submit that and go through the Viva process, quite similar actually to a standard PhD route Viva. We have a visiting student program. Visiting students can apply to come to UAL for 3 months or 6 months, and the fee for each set of 3 months is £2,060. You can apply to any of our colleges to spend some time with us. Your time as visiting student isn't really counted towards your PhD. You're not going through our progression points or anything like that, but it does give you the opportunity to come and work with a mentor here, an academic staff, who will be allocated about 10 hours of their time to mentor you during this period. Also, during that period here, you would have access to all our libraries, archives, and the resources of the college that you are studying in. For more information on any of these routes, do contact us at researchdegrees@arts.ac.uk. And you can apply at any time, either to transfer to us for PhD by published works or for the visiting student programme. Thank you. Next slide. We're on to thank you. Bea, do you want to close and then see we're going to questions?
Yeah, I was wondering if there are any questions that you wanted anybody to take, Jane, from the questions in the
there are.
If there are any we need to answer live, or if we think we've picked them all up.
No, I think there are a couple that it's worth looking about. I think the funded ones have answered live. There's someone here. Oh, I think this is for Alison and Bob actually, or Bob. Is just wondering if on a PhD they'd be just looking at their own projects, or do they get tutorials on developing their research skills?
Yeah, I can take that. I was noticing that one as well as the one about extending an MA thesis, but to take the first one about support for researcher development. This in a way we spoke about earlier when we were talking about the researcher development program, and this is delivered both by the doctoral school and in the colleges and the CCI. So there's sort of it's a kind of a broad and very full program of development or training opportunities. Some are events that are oriented towards things that all researchers need. Other ones are more kind of focused on things that particular groups of students need because of their topic and their methods. But I just want to answer that by saying that pretty much every week there is something going on that will support you in your development, and this is as a complement and an extension to what you get from your supervisory team, and this is something it has to do with each individual research degree student thinking about their development as a particular journey, and then how that maps onto what the offer is. I hope that answered that question. And I like the one from the person who was asking about whether they can extend their MA into a research degree. And I would say absolutely. This is really, I mean, in part, it's what an MA thesis is designed to do, which is to give you an opportunity to, focus on a individually driven, research topic and do that kind of original research. So this is beautiful ground to build a project on. So it's really your decision as to sort of how you want to amplify that or develop it or think about steering it in a new way or going deeper into it, etc. But an MA is absolutely a kind of key ground on which to think about where you want to go next.
Anything else you think we haven't answered?
I think this question was covered in the presentation, but I think it's something we do get asked a lot, and I think it might be worth perhaps asking B if they could answer this, because says my research is rooted in interdisciplinary practice, but I'm a bit unsure which program or school to apply to as my home base. If I applied to Wimbledon, for example, could my application also make it to the CCI?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would really depend on what your practice was and what the nature of what if you were working with some degree of technology. But what you would probably want to do is explore working across the two colleges. What I would suggest is I'm open to questions directly, and I know that our kind of PhD team is as well. So with things like this where it may be more specific, you may want to engage in more of a conversation directly, and you can email research degrees directly, or there are CCI contact details available on the UAL website.
Yeah, so it's about engaging in conversation with us. If you're at all not sure, then just email and ask, and a lot of it will be about, well, where is the main emphasis of the project, or if there's a particular resource that you need most access to in terms of finding your community. So it's about that will help us guide you in terms of where to place the study.
I mean, I think CCI is a good example where we have quite a small, we're a growing institute, so we don't have a vast faculty yet. And so it may be that you're working with something where you're not sure if we have the expertise in-house. And the best way to find out is to either look or to start asking. And I think that's probably true across UAL, but that's something true with CCI.
And then just thank you for that, B. And just finally, I see there's one in the chat about the PhD by published works. I really advise you to give us it's quite particular, the question you're asking around minimum requirements around the published work. So please just email us direct and we'll get that answered for you. So if that's everything, I think we've picked up all the questions that were unanswered at this point. Is that right, Jane? Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to thank my wonderful colleagues for all their support running this event, all those of you both presenting and the team in the background answering your questions that managed to put all the hosting. I'm getting love hearts going up my screen. I'm obviously passing out a lot of love right now, which is just fine. And also to thank the PhD students who let us share their work, give you examples of their practice, and allowed us to use them as examples in that way. We thank them very much for doing that, bringing their work, allowing us to bring their work to you. So other than that, we're going to thank you for all being with us. Do join us for the proposal development sessions that you will have had that invite to, and the email addresses have been shared with you extensively for the research degrees at arts.ac.uk. For any follow-on information, a lot of the technical information is on the website, but if you can't find it or if you're struggling anyway, please just reach out and send us an email. So thank you very much. great for being with us. You'll find that the site will close a bit abruptly if you don't just leave, but don't take that as an insult. It's just the way Zoom works. So thank you very much, colleagues and participants. Have a great rest of your day.